Okay, guys.
Yes, I have. I can. This is the commentator. The other one is the public, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Reggie, are you on the other line?
Reggie, do you have the broadcast line?
I have the broadcast line is open now.
Are we live?
And we're live. Stand by. We are recording. Susie?
The meeting is now in session.
Okay.
This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. Joe?
Good morning. I'm Joseph Privets, General Counsel of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. This is a special board meeting of the Water and Power Commissioners. With me in the boardroom is General Manager and Chief Engineer Marty Adams, our CFO Ann Santilli, the Board Secretary, and very limited essential staff only. As permitted by Governor Newsom's order of March 17th, all of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners are teleconferencing from remote locations. Also consistent with the Governor's order, all public comment will be taken telephonically. We may announce a recess if we have technical difficulties or lose a quorum due to technical difficulties. As indicated on the agenda, members of the public wishing to offer public comment should call 213-360-3065 and use meeting ID number 665-327-757, followed by the pound sign.
Joe, you should reread that first call number. You inverted a couple numbers.
That's
203-306. You said 360.
I'm sorry, it is 213-306-3065 and use meeting ID number 665-327-757, followed by the pound sign. Just let me repeat that. It is 213-306-3065, meeting number 665-327-757, followed by the pound sign. There is a call moderator who will let you know when it is your turn to speak. You will be identified by your partial phone number. To members of the public calling in, when it is your turn to speak, please state whether you are speaking on general public comments or a specific agenda item or items. The board secretary will let you know when your 2 minutes of public comment time is up. Finally, and very importantly for members of the public calling in, if you are also listening to the board meeting on your computer, please turn down your speakerphone as to avoid feedback. Commissioners, when moving on items today, if you are making a motion or seconding a motion, if you would please state your name before making the motion or second so the board secretary can accurately record it. I will now turn it over to the board secretary for a roll call.
Please say present. Roll call, President Levine.
Here.
Vice President McLean-Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Barad. Commissioner Barad, present.
Present.
Commissioner Reyes.
Here.
Commissioner Neiman Brady.
Speaking.
5 members are present and a quorum. Opening of the board meeting by President Levine.
Thank you, Susie. I have brief opening comments. I don't like to indulge extensively in opening comments, but I do have a couple of things that I very much want to say to open this meeting. First and foremost, as several of us said at the beginning of the last meeting, our staff deserves credit sort of beyond description. Under the most difficult circumstances imaginable, both our water staff, our power staff, all of our staff in every area has performed exceptionally well and deserves our highest praise. So I very much want to offer that praise and compliment our entire staff on extraordinary performance under unbelievably adverse circumstances. I also want to single out our senior staff, and while I like to joke with him from time to time about whatever, in all seriousness, I want to offer the highest praise for our general manager and chief engineer. He has really been an incredible leader under these circumstances. The messages he's been sending to the entire staff are important. They provide very important information in an extremely constructive manner. He's really taken the bull by the horns, as it were, and risen to the occasion. And in terms of rising to the occasion, I also want to offer the highest praise to our mayor. The remarks he delivered a couple of evenings ago in his State of the City address were nothing short of extraordinary, as has been his performance throughout this entire anguishing time. It's extraordinarily challenging to deal with the issues that we're all dealing with, and I can only imagine the pressures on our mayor. He has been non-political, he has been substantive, he's been extremely constructive, he's been innovative, he's engaged the community, and he spelled out in his State of the City address candidly and identified himself as the responsible party challenges that the city of Los Angeles faces. So I couldn't be more proud of our entire staff, our general manager, and our mayor, and those are my opening comments. So Susie, who do we have for public comment?
Steve Reisner?
Yep. Good morning. I have two people for public comment this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and go through each one of them. On the for call-in users, I'm going to state your area code and your prefix, and what I'd ask for you is to state your name and which item you're commenting on, and do your comment, then you'll have 2 minutes at that time. So I'm going to call-in user number 7, which is area code 213367. I've now unmuted your line. You're now live to speak with the commissioners. Call-in user, can you hear us? Please state your name and your topic.
Steve, this is Joe Brivich. There may be some confusion on that because that prefix you read is a DWP internal prefix.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That may be another one that's in. Okay. I will go to the next line. So the next call-in user is area code 714, prefix 745. I'm going to unmute your line. Please state your name and your item to comment on.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kevin Varzande. I'm doing a general public comment. My comment is regarding the Intermountain power plant. What I would like is that the DWP support 100% electrolyzed hydrogen facility opening in 2025. LADWP has previously described this as ambitious but possible. We do not want any new fossil fuel power plants at Intermountain in Utah. They don't want it either, and we should not be bringing fossil fuels online during the climate emergency. And that concludes my comment.
Thank you for your comment, Kevin. And Madam Secretary, that completes all of the public comment for today.
That concludes public comment. General public comment is now closed.
General Manager?
Good morning to our commissioners, and Mel, thank you very much for the kind remarks. I know it means...
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.
I guess there's always a commercial, right? So anyway, Yeah, Bernard, thank you for the comments. I know it means a lot to the staff here to have the support and the appreciation of the board, and everybody is indeed working very hard and pulling together during this time, and very proud to be leading the organization. There's a follow-up report on COVID, so I'll save some of my comments for that, and then a couple other things with budget, so I'll hold on those, so we have special presentations on that. Overall, I just want to let you know that the systems are running very well. We've had a couple underground outages in the power system. You will recall that overhead is, nobody likes overhead power lines because they don't look as good as underground until you have an outage. And underground outages are very difficult to track down. And we've had to pull thousands of feet of new cable underground as a result of solving these problems. One of our last outages in the Hyde Park area lasted a little over 24 hours. And so these are they're long and difficult outages to deal with, but we do have all of our crews responding to outages and working very hard on that, and it's something that Andy and his staff are keeping a very close eye on, especially as we expect to see better weather in the days ahead. Even though it won't be hot per se, the change in temperature often causes people to turn their air conditioning on because it's hotter than what they've been used to, and so we're keeping a very close eye on potential issues in some of the neighborhood areas because everyone's home and we expect a higher residential demand. Water's been relatively quiet, not any significant main breaks, so the systems are running well. Everything is being handled as we normally do, and no particular issues as far as that goes. We had some great news on the power front. I'll let Reiko talk about it, but you may recall that we had two issues totaling $125 million with the California Energy Commission having to do with the rules changing for renewable credits and whether we would receive credit for some of the power purchase and fuel purchase arrangements that we'd made prior to when the rules were established. And we had a favorable decision come out last Friday afternoon it was. So Reiko, do you want to describe that and what that means to us and our customers? Unmute, please. There you go.
Okay. Sure. As you recall, we presented this a couple times in closed session, but back before DWP was required to have a renewable portfolio standard, the city and DWP established their own and established what types of resources would qualify as a renewable resources under that RPS. When SB X12 came out in 2011, when POUs formally were required to adopt an RPS, and the CEC went through their rulemaking and guidebooks on what qualified for RPS, those resources that DWP had previously acquired were now the CEC had originally opined those don't qualify for the RPS. So even though they were hydro in the Pacific Northwest and other renewable resources that were qualified under our program, they didn't under the CEC guidelines. So we contested it vigorously. There were a number of reorgs, retirements, changeover of staff, city attorney's office, FSO, a lot of support to get this effort through. President Levine made a trip up to the CEC to meet with Chair Weisenmiller at the time, along with Nancy Sutley, myself, and a few others. They still stuck to their guns and weren't going to give up. And during one of our power system reorgs, we created a new division for regulatory compliance. And that task was to repair the relationship and historic contention between DWP and the CEC, and I think this directly shows that effort was very successful. We had very good conversations with their staff. We had good dialogues on how we could address this and how we could stay within the parameters, and we didn't believe that we should be subject to $25 million or the initial $125 million potential fines or penalties. So we went through the process. At the same time, there was a court case going parallel path because the commission did say we were not in compliance. So with this ruling and their board, their exec director ruling that we are now deemed in compliance, we can pull our suit and move on to better things and get focused on other areas and, that are more important right now. So very good effort, and I just applaud the entire team, which was very extensive, for their efforts in getting this completed in a successful manner.
Okay, thank you, Rico, and again, congratulations, and President Levine, thank you very much for your help in getting that secured. So that's good news. You know, just to remind everyone that when we have a $25 million decision, that's about $18 on every power bill on average. So it's not immeasurable. It's real money in our customers' pockets, literally directly in this case. So that was a very, very good outcome for us. Most of the rest of my comments have to do with the COVID update, so I'll hold off till then unless the board has any questions about anything.
Thanks, guys. Susie, why don't you call on each commissioner and see what comments each commissioner has?
Will do. Commissioner, Vice President McLean-Hill?
I have no comments at this time. Congratulations, Rico.
Commissioner Barad?
This time, thank you.
Commissioner Reyes?
I just want to echo what Board President said about the excellent performance of our general manager and our staff. Thank you so much. And I also have a few comments on agenda item 17, I believe, regarding the newly named Los Angeles Utility Bill Assistance Fund. So while I applaud the official name change, I would like the department to ensure that the program policies, procedures, and processes are streamlined and simplified in order to offer the most convenient and most cost-effective ways for our customers to access the program and respond to them in a timely manner, because we have a lot of our customers in dire straits right now. In addition, the department should also review the third-party processes and ensure that the voluntary contributions are transferred to the department without delay, so the customer bills are credited timely. And then from a supply chain and operations procedure, I would like to see the department diligently monitoring and maintaining the adequate critical supplies, parts, components, equipment, materials for emergencies, because there may be potential shortages due to the constrained production of supplies produced in countries highly affected by COVID-19. Say, for example, renewable energy projects could potentially experience issues with suppliers in those affected countries, especially those in Asia. So I just recommend that the department get a clear picture from our suppliers about any current or expected production delays that or declines that may cause delays in the fulfillment of those orders for the critical infrastructure supply. So that's just a reminder to our supply chain folks. And as an environmentalist, I would be remiss not to tell you that it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So happy Earth Day, and let's make Earth Day, every day should be Earth Day. Thank you.
Commissioner Neiman Brady?
Tying into the Earth Day comment, just also want to appreciate Rico and the team's efforts as it relates to getting those credits. So that is no small feat, and really congratulations on that. Otherwise, no comments. Thank you.
Ratepayer advocate.
Good morning. This is Fred Pickle, Executive Director, Office of Public Accountability, Ratepayer Advocate, and we will be making comments on items 8B after the presentation, and the board members would have received our report on the preliminary budget last evening, and that will be published hopefully on the DWP website under either item 5 or 8B sometime later today or tomorrow. And we do have some brief comments on item 25, the cybersecurity contracts. If you'd like them now, or if someone wants to call 25, we can make them then.
I'd like them now unless somebody wants to pull 25. If no one wants to pull 25, let's have your comments now.
Certainly. Our concern is the FERC and NERC standards for cybersecurity are a moving target. And I think it would be good for DWP to negotiate into these contracts when it has the opportunity, the obligation of the contractor to keep current on the current FERC and NERC standards related to cybersecurity, especially those related to the highest security aspects of the bulk electric system.
Fred, do you want that to be part of a motion?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay, I would propose that Fred's suggestion be included as an amendment to item 25. Is there objection? Hearing none, so when we vote on 25 as part of the consent calendar, it will include Fred's suggestion. Moving to item 6, discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk, which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board.
Right now. Commissioner Levine?
Yes.
Item 25, you need to do a motion to amend.
I just did.
Who seconded that motion?
Do we have a second to the motion that I thought we had just done?
This is Jill Barad. I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Go ahead, call the roll on that, Susie.
McLean Hill? McLean Hill, is it an aye vote?
Yes.
Jill Berard?
Aye.
Reyes?
Come on, get yourself done.
Aye.
Neiman Brady?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Yes, Mel's and I. No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Thank you, and also I'm an aye on that, that vote.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I don't recall which items you had sent out a list of items to be pulled. Can you remind me, at least if the others may remember, what items do you have to be pulled, Susie?
Yes.
That have been noted?
Item 11 is pulled by Commissioner Berard. Item 13 is Commissioner Neiman Brady. Item 15, Commissioner Neiman Brady. And item 16, Commissioner Neiman Brady.
Do any commissioners wish to pull any items other than 11, 13, 15, and 16? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve items 12, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27?
This is Commissioner McLean Hill. So moved.
Second? Those in, go call the roll, please, Susie.
Yes. Levine?
Aye.
McLean Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Berard?
Aye.
Reyes?
Aye.
Neiman Brady?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. When we get to the public items, we will hear 11, 13, 15, and 16. And now we'll go to management reports, starting with the update on COVID-19.
Commissioner Levine, just for clarification, public comment is now closed on all items.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a kind of a smattering of things to cover. I'll try not to drag it out too long. I gave a pretty good report of what we were doing at our last board meeting. I think you've all been kept up by Susie on all the notices and everything from the videos to GM bulletins we've put out. Basically, you know, we still continue to do telecommuting with most of our office staff. I believe we have as many as 2,900 people telecommuting right now. We also, a week ago, began crew rotations in the field. This was done to make sure that we have a healthy workforce for outages and emergencies. And so we kept some of the folks at home doing online training, some of the job-based training and safety and other training that they need to do, and then and reduce the number of people that were actually in the field doing critical work. We've continued to keep an eye on our control centers, both the ECC, LOSDAC for the water system, the filtration plant, as well as the power plants, to make sure that the control operators remain healthy and that we don't have infection. At this point, the steps we're taking seem to be working very well. We've had a handful of cases affecting our employees. We're at about half the average of infection through the general population experiences in the LA County, and we've had no transmissions amongst employees. So we've done a good job in keeping the workplace safe, and it appears by all indications that being at work is safer than being at home right now. And so our crews have done a great job of even learning how to distance in the field and maintain themselves, you know, and all the folks here make sure that they are keeping away from each other, spaced out. Everybody has masks on these days, except for those of us that are 10 feet apart right now. And anyway, it's all working, and it's all working very well.
Marty?
Yes.
Marty? Hi, it's Nicole.
Uh-huh.
I meant to actually say this in my comments, but your comments on COVID reminded me. Last week on, I believe it was Thursday, someone from the meter department came by to change my meter, and at an appropriate distance, I was chatting with him. He didn't know my role, and asking him, did he feel like he was having enough protection, and so on. And I just want to let you know that he felt really great about everything, that all your communications, everything that has been done. The only thing he said was that because of the rotations, he missed some of his friends. So that's the chief complaint. You're doing a great job. So please continue. But sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. No, thank you. I very much appreciate that. You know, it's interesting. There are a lot of people who can't wait to get back to work. And that's there's a lot of camaraderie here, and we have a very common purpose and a very strong sense of community at the department, and folks miss being together. And I know there's a lot of people that are, there's a lot of meetings being conducted. Lewis Carr has had to expand our bandwidth tremendously because of all the online meetings. I get emails from engineers saying that their projects are moving ahead well, especially because they're able to solely focus on certain things, and so. It's a very interesting time, but people do tend to miss each other, and I know a lot of folks are. I mean, Joe and I are happy just to put a tie on today to feel halfway normal for once. So, this is anything that looks like normalcy is very welcome at this point. I think you've all seen the videos that are going out. There's not been a recent GM update bulletin just because nothing's really changed, but I'm trying to do about once a week a video just to make sure employees are taking care. One of the things that we've seen recently, Rich has talked to some of his counterparts, not only nationally but around the world, and I know Andy and Reiko have been in touch, especially Reiko's been on a lot of calls with the LPPC, and the stress on employees that are having to work, and also employees that are home and being at home with their family and their kids all day long. I think there's a new appreciation for teachers. There's a lot of different stresses that people are undergoing, and so one of the last things that we did is remind people that we have a number of mechanisms in place and systems in place to help people cope with stress, including their family members. And so this is taking a mental toll as well as a physical toll on society, and so we're trying to make sure that our employees and their families we're looking after their welfare to make sure that they're able to come to work and to function well. I did want to point out we have I got a whole list of little things here. We do have products that we've made here at work, and Andy brought a few by and dropped them off at a safe distance this morning. we knew we have DWP hand sanitizer. You know, there's a world shortage of Purell, it seems. And so we are, one of our labs has made hand sanitizer that has come in a variety of shapes and sizes and bottles. So that's been manufactured. We also, one of the things we noticed is that our crews could wear masks except for the folks that were dealing in high voltage situations where they may have what's called an arc flash, and they couldn't have a mask that would be flammable. So it's the same as our arc-rated clothing, our shirts and jeans and overalls and things like that. So our upholstery shop, as part of Fleet that Andy manages, they took AR-rated, so arc-rated material. Some of it was old materials that we had. Some of it was sample materials we had. And they sewed together arc-rated masks. So we actually now have masks. So the guys up in a bucket or on a power pole who could be subject to a flash can wear a mask safely to protect themselves from the virus and from and it won't risk burning or melting if there's a flashover. So this is a great invention by Andy's folks and something that we're rolling out to the crews. So at this point, I think everybody who's working for us has the ability to be safe and wear a mask at work at all times. Andy, any comment? You want to make any comment about that? Where did Andy go? I don't see his initials up there, so, okay.
Yeah, so, no, I think it was a good thing that we have a tremendous amount of skilled employees. You know, we have over 47 different trades within the department itself, and the ability of our PCM shops to support supply chain with hand sanitizer and making it, and then our upholsterer to be able to adapt his shop to make the mask so that we can, supply our field employees. We had masks on order and we thought they were going to come in, but because of what's going on in New York, they're being, and rightly so, being prioritized. So the majority of what was available is being shipped to the East Coast because of what they're going through. So we adapted and it took us about a week to get everything up and running and get the materials in, but so our shops are now making the masks for our employees, and it just shows the versatility of what we have here within the department. There's not really anything we can't accomplish if we put our minds to it and put our skills to it. So I'm proud of all these groups that stepped up and are jumping outside their comfort zone to support the rest of the employees. Right now, we've got a request from LAWA to maybe help them and supply hand sanitizer to them as well. So our shop will be ramping up again to create more and help support LAWA as well with sanitizers.
Yeah, thank you, Andy.
I understand that we supported the port a while ago with bleach.
Yes, Rick, you want to comment on that? I'm waiting to see his mic go off mute.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we got a request. They needed to disinfect, material and equipment down there a number of weeks ago, and they contacted Marty, and we sent our water treatment operators down with what we call totes, but, large quantities of basically super concentrated household bleach that they could then mix down to a product that they can, disinfect their equipment down there. So we got a lot of thanks and happy to help. We're also doing a similar thing for Rec and Parks, working with LA San and Bureau of Engineering. The city had received a number of trailers for at-risk homeless folks, and so at a number of rec centers around the city, these essentially RV centers have been set up to house folks, and so we are disinfecting the freshwater tanks in those so people have ability to wash and bathe within those trailers.
These are terrific ways of helping other really important parts of our city.
Yes.
I may have said this last week. The port director called me and said they were desperate for bleach and they didn't know where to turn. They called Marty. They had tried various other sources, and 3 hours later they had everything they needed. They could not have been more grateful.
Well, and we've been able to, a lot of the city at City Hall, because of their proximity and normal working relationships, under certain major, major organizations like under Public Works, have kind of natural synergy and relationships, but we've been able to support the other city departments in a number of ways, as Rich mentioned and Andy mentioned. Last Friday, was it last Friday? I'm losing track of Fridays. Rec and Parks had a urgent need to disinfect their command center, and so we were able to get our one of our contractors out there who was able to do it on a Friday evening, so that they could be back in business on Saturday morning. And so we have been supporting the other agencies. Nancy, we had a meeting with Economic Development the other day because one of the things that the city's going through, as you're aware, there's kind of bailout programs, but there's programs to help small businesses, but small businesses are not very small. And so the smallest of businesses with the 5, 10, 20 employees are still looking for assistance, and so the city, I think the county as well, have come up with programs for them. But one of the problems that a lot of businesses have is how to get through the paperwork. And so Economic Development Department is working on this, and we had a meeting with them and Nancy and Sharon talking about how we could assist with our call center. Nancy, you want to just kind of brief us on what we're looking at doing with economic development for the business community?
Yeah, sure. We already, through our customer service representatives, they already have access to a number of the programs and offers of assistance to our residential customers. For example, we were able to give out information about how to apply for the Angelino card, for example. So we are working now with the Economic Development Department to make sure that we can provide that kind of information to small business customers. So our Director of Premier Accounts, who does a lot of the outreach, their group does a lot of the outreach with our business customers, is taking the lead on that so that we can find ways to share information from economic development on resources that are available to small businesses, and vice versa, to share information through their channels about programs at DWP that may help those businesses as they're trying to get back on their feet. So we'll continue to work on that. One area that they've needed some help on, and we think we'll be able to offer assistance, is around translation services. And there are many small businesses in Los Angeles where they reach communities who speak languages other than English. So we're looking for ways to make sure we can help them with that as well.
Thank you, Nancy. And Nancy, while you're at it, can you, I know Joe Romalo put together a list, and we're going to be sending it to the board in the next couple of days about some of the outreach efforts we have. Are there any highlights you'd like to point out in that, Nancy?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, we will be sending out an update to the board shortly that both lists the type of communications we've been doing, both internally and externally, as well as some of the examples of the communications. But we've been trying to use all communications channels that are available to reach out to customers to make sure they know, for example, that the water is safe to drink, that we will not be shutting anybody off. So we've run weeks worth of radio ads, print ads in community newspapers, lots of social media, updates on our website, and in addition to the internal communications to employees through bulletins, through the general manager's videos, and through signs. So it's been a team effort in terms of pulling the messages together, getting the copy produced, and getting it out. So you should see that shortly.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Nancy. Andy, do you want to cover any issues you have going on in the field, or outage issues or concerns? I know you mentioned about with the weather getting warm and also wind at the end of the weekend the board should be aware of. There you are.
Yeah, so we do have weather coming in later this week. It's supposed to warm up, as we said, and then towards the end of the week, too, we're supposed to get some high winds coming through. So 12 to 25 with gusts up to 50 miles an hour. So we don't anticipate, NOAA does not anticipate there being an increased risk of fire due to the rain we just had and the fuel supply being moist and wet. But we will be putting all of our, wind and protocols in place during that time for the Tier 2, Tier 3 fire areas, just to be safe. We're looking to see what the increased heat, what that looks like, and I think as long as it gets warm in the day and cools down at night, we should be fine. But we will see probably, as people, like Marty said earlier, as people adjust to the new heat after being a cool season, then behavior tends to change. So we'll be looking at that as well. But I anticipate the system will hold up well. With it having rained as much as it did and the wind starting to blow, I think we do run into an increased chance of trees blowing over where the ground was wet. We'll have our tree crews ready, standing by just in case. But overall, I think the system will hold up well. And even though we are rotating our crews, they are all ready to come in when needed.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. Rich, do you want to just let us know how things are going in the water system and also about what's going on with the fishing opener in the Eastern Sierra?
Yeah, so overall we did, with the rains of the last week and a half or so, we did get a significant uptick, precip up in the Eastern Sierra. So we're sitting at now 80% of the April 1st position, but still it's going to be essentially a 60+% runoff year, which I said before that it's normal to be below normal in most years. In terms of the fishing opener, so the fishing opener is actually would be scheduled for next, I think it's next Saturday, the 25th, or this upcoming Saturday, the 25th. And we are prepared and just waiting for both Inyo and Mono County to postpone the start of the fishing season. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife is giving those counties the ability to make their own call on that. But they have already issued statements that they are telling people not to come up there. It's important for us because, number one, just being a significant landowner up there and opening up 70% of our lands to the public. So a lot of people fish the Owens River and the tributaries. So it's important that we are working alongside our county partners up there, as well as we have franchisees significantly at Crowley Lake that operate marinas there and places to fish along the lake. So we stand ready with them once they make that call to make sure that we're lockstep with that. And it is a safety issue for us because all throughout the state of California in the west, there is an invasive species called the quagga mussel that locks onto boats and trailers of boats. And so before you can dip your trailer and boat into a lake or a river in California, you have to have it inspected that it is free of that. And we perform those inspections on the lakes reservoirs that we operate. And so, if you have, in this time of being at stay-at-home orders, to have a fishing opener would subject our employees to be in and around literally thousands of boaters going up into the Eastern Sierra. So for us, it's a safety issue to our employees, and we expect the county to be making that announcement already. I mean, as it is now, you can't rent a room or go on Airbnb, get a house in the Eastern Sierra. And so it's pretty well clear that people are not to be traveling up into the Eastern Sierra to recreate. And so this will just be an official notice that we'll be a part of.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Last and certainly not least, our CAO, Linda Lee, has been kind of the quiet force, well, sometimes not so quiet force behind a lot of our efforts in this. And I'd like her just to comment on a couple things. We have a resource office that we've created, and they're handling certain telecommuting aspects. So in the telecommuting, we have a regular telecommuting program. We also have a telecommuting program for people who have no options for childcare, which changes in terms of reporting, and also a telecommuting program for people who are over age 65 or have underlying health conditions. And so they manage those two programs, as well as the biggest thing is they deal with folks who are sick in the workplace or are suspected of potentially being positive for the virus, and they quickly research all the contacts that person has had and decide who needs to be off on a basically administrative leave in quarantine until that person tests either positive or negative or has no symptoms. And so I would ask Linda to just kind of comment on that office, and also what we're doing with temperature monitors, which is something that we've rolled out in the last week or so. Go ahead, Linda.
So at Mr. Adams' direction, we've done a lot of new temporary policies that we've put in place to help address the issues that we're facing right now. Electronic signature, ways to deal with less paper, hiring processes, and all those. And also, we have worked on several policies to make sure that the workplace is safe. And so we started out with some of the sick policies, where somebody coming into work and showing symptoms, how to deal with it. And now we've moved on to the telecommuting and also the rotational policies to help thin out the work crowd. So as a process, part of this process, Mr. Adams also asked us to create the resources office, because there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of things changing very quickly. So we wanted to make sure we were consistent across the board in all three part of the house, the joint system, water system, power system. And so the resource office was created to provide advice and kind of an administrative function to all the systems so that they know how to apply the interim policies. So in the beginning, there was a lot of calls. We got about 1,200 calls in the first week, 1,000 calls. Since then, because of thinning out of the crowd, it has gone down quite a lot. I've had a lot of very dedicated staff. They were managing this phone call night and day, answering all kinds of questions, and addressing a lot of employee concerns and fears about what's going on and how it affects them and how it affects the work. So a lot of thanks to that group that was headed up by Peter Turco and Linda Ikegami. So they did a great job, did it very quickly, and made sure it worked, and was very responsive to the staff's needs. We've also done a lot of other measures, like Mario was mentioning, the thermometer stations. So Andy and Rich have identified critical facilities throughout the department, some here in the JFB itself, where we've created thermometer stations to self-certify yourself before you respond to work. So they are just so there's a checklist of things that you should be able to answer before you enter a critical facility, so that we don't infect the facility itself. So it's worked. As Marty mentioned at the very beginning of this, a lot of his policies have made sure that right now we've only had 6 positive, and all 6 of those positives were outside the workplace. We have had no cross contaminations between employees. Those employees who have been put off because there have maybe some exposures, they've all come back, and none of them have had any symptoms or had any positive results. So the great news is all the policies are working, and so we're staying on top of it. We're still monitoring, and as events change, we're going to create new policies and put in new procedures.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Unless anybody from the board has a question about anything related to the COVID, we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, well, thank you very much. Back to you, Susie.
Thank you. Presentation and discussion regarding update on fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Ann Santilli?
Hi. So let me preface real fast. Ann's going to take the lead on budget discussion. This is not a number-rich presentation. This is more of a discussion about where we believe we are and should be heading with the budget. Christian McLean-Hill had a number of questions about some comparisons of not just what we accomplished last year, but also where we fell short or when we underspent areas, what didn't get done, and what that meant toward our goals. So we still have some charts and graphs that will be coming, and we'll send out after this presentation. We're not waiting for the next board meeting, so you all can see some metrics and see graphically how some of that works, how some of the work looks, what we're actually accomplishing versus what our goals are, and hopefully that'll put some context around that. we've had a lot of things going on in the meantime, just in terms of dealing with what we can expect to do with the budget moving forward. So Ann's been working hard on analysis for what we could do within last year's budget, what the impacts of the stock market on retirement contribution will be, what our a reasonable hiring plan would look like. And so, I'm going to let her discuss that, and really we'll look for some direction from the board. Dr. Pickle has some recommendations. Because of sales, which you'll see with Ann, the question remains, if we stay within our current budget, that because of less units being sold, that could drive a unit rate increase, which may not be a bill increase, but that has certain optics associated with it. This is not a rate increase, it's the pass-throughs that are all within the board's authority. And so, certainly at this point, not just the budget, but the bill impact from the budget is something that the board, it's just a board issue. It's not a council vote on new rates or anything, but it's something within the board's purview. It also has to do with the rate structure that we put in place during the last rate action, which provided decoupling to make sure that when sales went down, we had the necessary income to function as a department and to keep our critical programs going. And whether we want to, utilize the mechanism that was put in place the way it was identified. And so with that, I'll turn over to Ann. She can explain it a whole lot better than I can, but there'll be a lot of considerations that we'll ask the board for direction on at the end of this.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Ann Santilli. Sure. I need my book. So at the last board meeting, we presented the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2021, and we developed that data prior to the start of the COVID-19 event. But prior to that event, and exacerbated by the COVID-19 event, electric demand has been dropping, and water usage is also expected to drop than what was projected at the beginning of the fiscal year. Here's an example of energy demand that is down. Based on this data last week, our bulk load was down 13% below projections, and daily fluctuations can be even greater. Right now for the fiscal year, it's approximately 4.4% down, but we know we have another 2 months remaining in the fiscal year to close.
So just to comment on this, business and industry, which are a big portion of our electrical demand, are really waning. And so we're seeing a slight uptick in residential. We don't have the exact numbers yet, but we've done some studies, and we see a slight uptick in residential uses from people being home, but the big users are not in business right now. Over the weekend, so it was in March, we were down about 10 or 11%. Early April, we were running about 15% down. I think our average is probably over the last couple of months. I will tell you that Friday, Reiko, I believe we were down 17 or 18%. Saturday was down over 20%, and then Sunday was down close to 20%. So these are, so there is some, some of the silver lining is that when the weather's been nice, we're having higher percentage of renewable energy. We're also buying less fuel to go with this. So there are some mitigating effects in terms of not having to pay for more expensive power, pay for fuel. But at the same time, overall sales are down. What we're seeing pretty consistent in the electric industry is somewhere in that 10 plus to 15% range overall.
LADWP has taken many steps to combat the impact of the COVID-19 event on employees and customers. Some of these include extending payment arrangements and pay plans for customers, stop customers from being disconnected due to late payments. We've implemented a hiring freeze to limit social contact. We've implemented social distancing in the offices and added telecommuting, which Marty talked about earlier. We've implemented rotational staffing for the field, and we've closed the customer branches to limit social contact.
And so just so nobody gets shocked, let me comment on the hiring freeze. The hiring freeze is because it takes a lot of personnel and transactions to be hiring, and plus the fact that we have no one here to have new employees report to. So the hiring freeze is part of the function of most personnel functions in the city being stopped at this time. Although this past week, the city is restarting certain personnel actions, and so we are looking at certs and things that we had in process. Again, onboarding people is extremely difficult unless they're in a position where they come in knowing a skilled craft and they're ready to work. So we have, but for all intents and purposes, we've had no hiring for the last month and a half or so, and we'll continue until we have some path forward with getting people back to work.
So as we go into the next budget considerations, we're looking at revising the fiscal year 2021 budget to the fiscal year 1920 approved budget level with adjustments for required spending. We plan to keep the rate changes to a minimum while still meeting required mandates, reliability, and financial metrics. We want to revisit the information technology projects to determine which ones to move forward with. We want to partner with the other city agencies to determine what work can be done in-house before contracts are released. And then we also want to actively manage all vacancies before hiring. This is a slide from last board meeting, and it shows the approved budget for 1920 with a total of $7.4 billion, and then what was presented as the preliminary budget for 2021 of $7.8 billion. So our current projections for our final budget is to go back to the 7.4, but it may not be in these exact categories. We need to see what required spending has changed and realign it with the 7.4 billion. This is also a slide from the last presentation. This is LADWP staffing. So the current bar chart, this is the staffing as of January 31st. This was our last snapshot. The middle column is the funded head count from the approved budget of 1920. And then the last column was the proposed funding for 2021. If you look down, you can see that the overall spending of $2.5 billion is roughly in line for both years. However, what changes is the labor versus the benefits. When we started our budget for 2021, we assumed we'd be able to drop some of our funding for our pension program. But as we look at the financial markets, we may need to go back to our prior estimates and have higher spending. So we're going to continue to look at this and try to keep our total labor funding within that $2.5 billion estimate. Slide 8 is our current occupancy. Right now we're at 10,687. As Marty mentioned, for the last several weeks we have not been hiring, but we do continue to get retirements on the first of every month. So we'll continue to monitor this, but we don't think we will get close to that 11,553 for fiscal year 2021. Slide 9 is some of the major IT investments that we shared at the last board presentation on the budget. This will be some of the items we'll go back and re-look at to see which ones it makes sense to move forward with and which ones we may want to hold off for an additional year or so. And in summary, when we need to bring back the final budget in May, our goal is to re-estimate the sales so that they're more realistic with the COVID-19 event, as well as conservation and local rain, which also reduces sales for water. Reduce our budgeted spend. Actively manage all vacancies before hiring. Working with the other city agencies on proposed spending. And then minimize the rate change. As Marty mentioned, we're not looking for base rate changes this fiscal year. However, all of our pass-throughs will impact customer bills to the extent pass-throughs go up and sales go down. And also on our base rate revenue, one of the things in our rate structure is we have a decoupling mechanism. So we have a targeted base rate revenue dollar amount in both of the ordinances. And to the extent sales are lower and we're not able to collect that dollar amount, we recover that over the next calendar year. We will be presenting that dollar amount to the board in late September, early October, with the rate impact for how much revenue that is anticipated to be recovered.
So, so back to the rate impact of this. So if we stick within our current year's budget and we repeat that this year, the approved budget, the net impact to the customer theoretically is about the same as far as total bill dollars go. But because sales are down, the per unit impact would be seen. But we do believe that we could stick within the existing approved budget and cover the additional health care costs, as well as still have some room for increase in capital expenditure for both water and power to get their projects done. The IT projects are probably the biggest wild card. There is not a lot of new money being spent on IT next year, but with the launch of the ERP, if we do that according to plan, it has quite a high personnel demand because the systems all have to support their aspects of the business and their aspects of the new computer systems that would support their business area. And so that would drive a pretty significant increase in personnel. So we are right now revisiting if there's any ways to kind of slowly walk into that set of projects. The problem is because of the interlinking of the different IT projects, you can't really just do one and not do the others. So we're looking at the approach. As Dr. Pickle had told me on the phone about a week or so ago, he said, you could be like every general manager the last 20 years had to kick the can down the road because this is always the thing that gets pushed. And this is how we end up in a situation now where we have old legacy systems, some that are really barely being held together. And so it's kind of a critical question is there a modified approach to how we can start work on this? We really cannot continue to ignore the need, but at the same time, not bite off so much that it impacts the budget adversely. And certainly work in the joint systems, whether it's on the IT projects or anything else, those are all paid by water and power budgets. So they impact both O&M for water and power as well as the ability to do capital work. Andy and Rich, I'm interested if you have comments in particular about continuing at the pace that you've been able to continue with your crews in the field, or if there's a slight increase in crew capability, what that means in terms of your goals and metrics. Rich, you want to start?
Well, certainly for capital, there's two areas. So we have a lot of internal capital that happens with our water distribution division in terms of putting in main line and trunk line, as well as capital activities up in the aqueduct. So the putting in mainline trunk line is really a function of us being able to keep our staffing up, and that's a challenge, as it is with most other places in the department. So certainly when we are talking about the present with the coronavirus, we've moved away from mainline installation, and so when we get back, we're going to have to spool that up, and so that drag will likely include not being able to make or having to re-estimate what our goals are for the upcoming fiscal year. We are still moving forward with a pretty heavy large capital program in terms of our large construction projects, and there are a number that have just been awarded by your board this part of the year so far. And so we'll continue to do that, and it is pretty ambitious, but as a result of the budget exercise now that Marty just explained and Ann explained, we will be undergoing some significant cuts, over $100 million on our capital program. Much of that is just, number one, doing a lot more realistic look at what we're doing. Like most other water agencies in the United States, we usually deliver on about 85% of our capital program, and so we're just going to assume that that's going to be the reality for us, as well as just looking at our estimates and the way we put them together. And we've found some fundamental things that makes for that we've corrected, that makes for a much more realistic prediction of our capital spending. So it will be not necessarily business as usual, but we are still looking to deliver on our existing capital improvement program.
So you see about that if we continue the budgeting the way we are trying to go right now, that you think you'll be about on the pace that we've been on, and then that'll get us to where we want to be. We think we'll be far behind, or what's your general assessment?
Yeah, I think that if the target is basically 1920, I think that's realistic. As I've explained to Marty earlier, with the capital program, we basically have a lever that we could, push and pull and do mid-year corrections to see where we're at in terms of spending and the impacts on our pass-through. So, because a lot of that is a function of how many contracts we let out with these large construction projects. So we can do a mid-year correction at any point and basically land where we want to with what your board approves on our budget. But basically, if we're held to 1920 and or basically to hold the rates of where we're at now, what the approved rates are now, we can very likely deliver on that. And I don't think Ann mentioned, but to do that, not only are we looking at making significant cuts to the proposed 2021 budget, but also then looking at 21-22, because that has impacts later in the upcoming fiscal year on rates. So there will be even more significant cuts. And when we say cuts, it's basically, as I said, we have the ability to kind of dial in where we want to land the ship on this, and that's basically by deferring the issuance of some of these larger construction contracts.
Okay. Thanks, Rich. Andy, you want to comment on where we are, and particularly with the high fire risk area and the use of some of our contracts and such?
So, I mean, currently, like Rich kind of said, if we're back to the 1920 approved contract, then I think we will have to make some decisions, and Reiko can chime in, because we did going forward, into that 2021 budget, factored in a bunch of new things when it comes to clean grid. We have the energy imbalance market coming. So I think we'll have to make some decisions, but I think we're well positioned to, when it comes to reliability, to be able to continue with that and continue at the goals that we have. We will be adding probably towards the mid-fiscal 2021 year a contract for wildfire hardening to come in and do our reconductoring from bare wire to insulated wire, installing steel poles and just hardening our systems in the tier 2 and 3 areas. We're sort of holding off on implementing that contract right now because it will require a large amount of inventory. So we're in the process right now of creating a back stock of inventory when it comes to wire, so that we make sure that we're using those contract crews as efficiently as possible and making sure we don't run out of material for them. So, but we did have an ambitious goal for next year, when it comes to upgrading our substation automation, our distribution automation coming in, and there's I think I talked about it a couple board meetings ago with the fact that we're down in staffing and hiring in the line series, and the fact that LAWA work, Metro work, Port of LA work is increasing, and the affordable housing and the homeless buildings and housing that's coming in. So it is stretching us relatively thin, but we should be fine within that 2021 or the 1920 levels. For reliability, we may have to make some hard choices when it comes to some of the other stuff that we had goals. So Reiko, if you want to chime in on that, if you have thoughts.
Go ahead, Reiko.
Yeah. So when we talk about the things that we included in the budget, some of those are things that have been in the planning stage. And when you think of whether it's solar, batteries, microgrids, just the voltage conversion on the distribution system, all of those require planning, drafting, engineering, construction, maintenance, operations. And so those resources were loaded into the budget to be able to support, like Andy said, Metro, POLA, LAWA. We have distribution automation. There's increases in cybersecurity because we have more and more aggressive cyber NERC compliance from federal agencies that aren't optional, that we have to comply with. The energy imbalance market, we were set to go live in April 2021. We've delayed hiring those positions. It was 38 positions till this year because you don't want to bring them in advance of when you need them, because there's a lot of background work you have to do, from getting all your meters set and revenue quality data coming out of that. And a lot of our facilities are 60, 70, 80 years old, where we've had to upgrade meters to be able to get quality reads to know what and validate what we're getting charged or paid. Substation automation, the IPP, obviously that has to continue moving forward as we convert that plant. We're looking at Hoover pump storage. Should we just stop on that? There are a lot of transmission and distribution projects that were associated with the Clean Grid LA and the efforts to get off the once-through cooling of our in-basin power plants. So that's included in the budget. We've had a lot of solar and other distributed resources on the distribution system. So we have a distributed energy resource management system, as well as a distributed integrated resource plan. We have, like I said, batteries, microgrids, as well as all the PSRP, the normal stuff. That reliability stuff has to continue. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions on what gets cut, given the direction that we want the utility to go. And I think the board and council and mayor also want the city to go. So it's going to be a balance that tough decisions.
So Reiko, could you go ahead? Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, something I couldn't hear you clearly. Did you say you said you're delaying hiring related to the EIM? But are you delaying joining EIM too?
No. Initially, we were going live in 2019 for EIM. We did not add 38 positions in 2019. We pushed it out to 2020, which realistically was a better date. But then with the loss of the reliability coordinating services through WEC that now had to go through CAISO and staff shortages, we pushed it out to 2021. And so those 38, we've hired some of those, but a lot of those still have to come in.
So go ahead. Did you your question answered? I'm sorry.
What obligations do we have with regard to complying with the EIM by a particular time?
So the EIM is a voluntary market. We have no obligation whatsoever to join. There is a concern if we don't participate in CAISO that we could be forced into something that may not be as optimal if we can control with the voluntary participation. So we pushed it off 2 years. And so I guess there is no requirement that we come in April. You can only come in 1 day a year. So if you miss that April 1 date, you're going to have 38 FTEs for a whole year till you hit the next year. And like I said, you don't have 38 today, but there's probably a good 20 folks that are working on that now.
So with regard to potentially being pushed into CAISO, who makes that decision? Whose jurisdiction is that?
So that would be at the state level, because we have our own jurisdiction now. There is the state implementation of the CAISO required that the investor-owned utilities join. For the publicly owned utilities that are in that market now, it was a voluntary decision based on some incentives that were provided. That's for full participation. The EIM is, there's a lot of benefits in there because you get the access to the renewables on a wider geographic footprint through the whole western states, and there are a significant number of entities throughout the whole West that are joining that EIM to gain that value. And I also think that clearly when we go to IPP and hydrogen, we're banking on the excess renewables to really subsidize or offset the cost of that hydrogen production that the public commenter commented on earlier, to be able to have a clean burning plant.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that. Are there potential economic benefits to us by moving forward that would compensate us for the additional costs?
Yeah, so we should be able to have not only access to, the EIM is a real-time market, and there is a lot of generation, renewable energy that is curtailed in the West. Last year it was over a gigawatt hour of energy production. This year they're on track to double that. So if that energy is not curtailed, it can be sold very cheaply, or they can pay us to take it. So if we can have access to that market, especially with our Cascade plant and the ability to take that energy when it's really cheap and pump it up the upper reservoir and then run it later in the evening when the sun stops shining, or in other periods when we need it, it's much more beneficial to us. It also provides us a market to participate with some of our resources where we could potentially sell them also.
So my only thought on that, and I'm sure you've already thought about this, is whether or not, we ought to be factoring in the potential cost savings that would be generated by the additional cost.
Yes, and we have not done, we have the initial study for when we, to do the cost benefit to join. A lot of things have changed since then. Obviously our resource mix has changed and others within the West, although everybody's under the same RPS mandate out here, so everybody has excess generation. So I think we're uniquely situated because we do have Cascade, so we have the ability to use that, but that is also at some point going to be limited.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I do agree that it's an interesting situation because we have a number of programs that in the coming years will save our customers a lot of money and provide a lot of increased reliability and increase our ability to use renewable energy. At the same time, those have costs now associated with getting to that point. So that becomes the issue of how much you can slow down in what areas. Reiko, would you just comment just a little briefly on distribution automation, EIM, smart metering, that kind of the interplay of the information, and there's NERC-FERC and a lot of compliance, and in terms of what we can see from our own SCADA systems and the ECC, because I know that those don't really act independently of each other. So can you kind of comment on how those interplay with each other?
Yeah, so because DWP does not have smart grid, it really limits the ability to get real-time information to make decisions. And that is one of the benefits of the distribution automation, so we can start putting sensors and technology on our various circuits so we can get that information without having smart grid or smart meters. It provides the backbone of smart grid, so you can start capturing that information to make real-time decisions, and also implement automated systems, whether it's disconnects, turn-ons, turn-offs, or whatever, without having to actually go out and have boots on the ground or look at it visually. NERC and SIP, when that was first implemented, it related to all the systems that could potentially impact the bulk electric system, and it was a very high level, 100 megawatts and above. And increasingly that is getting into lower and lower voltage system, because clearly what you do on your distribution system can impact the bulk electric system. And so having more and more requirements, having the requirement of audits every 3 years, having the self-reports and oversight, we have to have field crews and field staff, engineers, technicians, et cetera, to be able to gather that information on our system, because we have thousands of equipment that could be subject to that bulk electric system. And now you also have the CPUC that's also getting into this area and also requiring information on essentially whatever the bulk FERC isn't considering, then the CPUC is also looking into.
So
From whether it's cyber or physical, and they really go hand in hand, because if you don't have your physical security, if once you penetrate the physical area, you can get into the cyber area. So they really have to go hand in hand.
So I just wanted her to just touch on that. So there's, you know, a number of these things that seem like independent projects have a lot of relationship to each other, and a lot of it has to do with modernizing the system and gathering information and being able to digest it and use that in a good way. So, so with that, as we're putting this together, there'll be some natural slowing down of how work progresses, because we won't be able to staff up as quickly in certain areas. But at the same time, the kind of the cadre of projects do need to move forward together at the same time. It's not like we can do one and omit others. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just didn't know how to break in.
Sorry.
I've been listening carefully, and I've heard I've heard it all. What I'm having difficulty really identifying is the framework or the lens from a strategic perspective in terms of where you want to come out of this that will guide the myriad of decisions that need to be made. And I also so I'm curious about what that frame looks like. And then I'm also want to dial back to the conversation, or to the comments around the technology project, and I probably want to reinforce the observation of Dr. Pickle with respect to the both tendency for that kind of work to be kicked down the road while we continue to lean into other projects, in particular capital projects. And I'm just curious about the analysis as it relates to the long-term implications of further delay in that space, since invariably much of what we will need to accomplish will be tied to not just not just those big physical projects that we see in the world, but also our internal ability to support them from a technology perspective. So I'm curious about how that analysis is being, and how that prioritization is being factored into what we do today. I'm seriously concerned about, doing a little bit of everything without a very, very, very clear sense of what the priorities are, and how those priorities are reflected in the work that we're doing.
So if I could, let me ask Linda to talk a little bit about what we have facing us on the IT, and she must have Lewis in the office because I see her. And then I think.
Sorry, Linda.
So then I'm very interested to ask for Dr. Pickle's opinion and what he sees, and then I'll tell you what I think our direction should be, and get the board's input into that. So if I could, so Linda, go ahead. I see Mr. Carr is lurking in the background. That's good.
And I'm going to ask Lewis to join in if the commissioner's nurse would like some extra information. So the pandemic, what we gotten out of this is it's really focused us on the IT upgrades that we need to do. There's a lot of IT resources that Lewis has put together, purchasing has put together very quickly for us to get us through this, but it's also focused us to make sure that we understand that there is a bigger need for these technology upgrades. So the big projects we've been talking to the board about working on is projects like the ERP, the updated CCP, the customer's billing system, and also to migrate to the cloud. So with these new budget constraints, of course, we realize that things are going to slow down. But like Marty was saying earlier, a lot of the budget for the ERP in the coming year is about the software and the integrator. So both of these do not have a lot of money in the coming year. They were in the following year, which the impact to us would be the labor that we need to focus on making those systems come up. So some of the things Louis and I have been talking about on how to keep CCB and ERP and those projects moving is now we look at this and break it into smaller components instead of trying to do this whole huge project all at once and trying to get all these resources in the house at once. And let's start on those big things that we need direct impact on right now so that we can get those moving forward. So stuff like, the cyber, the board's approved the cyber contract today. So those, these big contracts that we have put in place, there's no minimum requirements on them. So it's a matter of us deciding which part of them we're going to move on. But they're available to us now so that we can move on the parts that we do think that this is where we need to move and be strategic about moving forward on. We know that we need to make a lot more functionalities available online. We know that we need to make timekeeping and those functionalities available online. Purchasing, HR functions. So a lot of good that came out of this is, and I hate to look at it as a good, but it gave us an opportunity to look at what we do as a department and what are we not doing right now that we really didn't need to do, because we're finding out that streamlining the process, maybe some of this that we are doing is not required. And so now as we're working into the IT and trying to put those functionalities online or do it, we're going to cut out some of those things that we didn't need to. And as I was just saying earlier, the main drawdown for us is going to be, the resources that we need from the system. But we deal with that by, like I was explaining, making instead of doing the entire ERP and wrapping our arms around the entire project all at once, we split it up into little components and see which one of those components are the most important to deal with. And I think that's how we're going to approach it. But these are things we still needed to discuss with the board and with Marty to make sure that you understand how we want to approach it before we move forward in directions. We have the contracts and the components in place to move forward as fast as the board wants or as slowly as the board
So, yeah, Louis, I would say besides the fact that what we spend on this also impacts the availability for monies in water and power systems for their capital work, Louis, can you comment on the staffing support that
Marty,
you have?
Hold on, Marty, I just want to say, I do get that part, and I think that in my own head, what I'd like to the extent that there are costs associated with this work, there's also costs or a price associated with not doing it. And all I'm asking, or all I'm suggesting to you, is that what I pick up this tendency for the default being water and power capital projects and other work has to be preserved at all costs, and the place that there's a greater cost there, and the place where we should be, or where we are willing to tighten more quickly because there's a perceived less impact is in the information technology space. I'm simply suggesting that we think through in a different way or in a more equal way how we assess cost and benefit. So, and we're not talking about, and the problem is that we have a short-term, maybe 2 to 5 year window here where we're likely to be dealing with the impact of this pandemic. But the continued disinvestment or lack of attention to technology, information, etc., I think that the impacts of that just grow and grow and grow over time. They grow very quickly, and it's something that we have done over and over and over again. When at some point, even our operating units will become highly vulnerable to our lack of investment in our technology area. So I understand that we haven't made, that these decisions have yet to be made because they haven't been presented to us, but I am just suggesting that as we approach these decisions, we got a full report from water, a full report from power, but we're apparently going to proceed without a full report from IT, and IT is critical. And when you talk about even sort of cost, the inefficiency of our department as it relates to and because of some of our IT disinvestment or lack of investment has a cost. that is not inconsiderable, not to mention the technology needs that we will have in order to become a truly smart department as we move forward with some of our more sophisticated projects. So that's really what I'm saying.
Yeah. And just so you know, so I understand exactly what you're saying, and we're not proposing that we're cutting all the IT projects out. We're looking at how to proceed and proceed within the budget framework. And there are certain things, for instance, in Nancy's shop, the lack of a up-to-date IVR means that we have to hire however many more customer service reps, to answer the phones, when a lot of that should be done automatically, and by people dialing in and just pushing the buttons and the selections that they want. So there's impacts, as you say, all the way around on efficiency and how we operate, and certainly on our level of customer service. Louis, I was going to ask you, in terms of your support of the systems for their needs, there's the water SCADA, but particularly in power, there's supporting their NERC for compliance, ECC support, smart grid support. Can you elaborate a little bit on what your budget looks like in terms of supporting those system investments? You'll have to yell. We can't.
Okay. Good morning, board.
Come closer, Louis. Switch places, maybe, or something.
Okay.
Don't breathe.
Trying to maintain social distancing. The investments in support of a number of technology projects, as has been mentioned, there's a dependency in a number of technology projects, and we're working on developing that dependency map for the senior AGMs to kind of show how one project, for example, the network that distribution automation would need, how that would also support the billing system and potentials for smart meters in the future. So from a staffing perspective, last year we got positions. This year there are a number of positions on the horizon. If we continue along that road, we'll be able to continue to make inroads and try to show the value of those technology projects, intrinsic value as well as our dollar value of investing in technology projects.
Did you have any questions for Louis on these particular areas? Rich, I know you had something you wanted to add to this discussion.
Yes, I want to underscore one point and bring up a kind of an interesting factoid. During this coronavirus, there's a lot more people at home, obviously, with the safer at home order from the mayor. So it's making it difficult for us to do mainline work in the streets because you've got a combination of more cars on the streets and then just people at home doing homeschooling and whatnot, and not totally appreciating all the noise that they normally wouldn't hear when they're at work and at school. And so what we've done is redeployed our forces currently to doing, new meter installs, replacing fire hydrants. But most interestingly is our requests for new service have not dropped at all from pre-COVID-19 levels. So the amount of construction and residential and commercial development has not slowed down in the city of Los Angeles, by that being an indicator. So it's very interesting as we move forward. And then the other thing, I just want to underscore on our capital program that really what unlocks us to do almost any amount of that, appreciable amount of that plan, is our ability to continue our hiring and staffing plan. So I think all of the speakers have referred to just the resources to be able to do that. Whether in even in a reduced amount going back to current budget year going forward, we're still going to need to continue to hire for a variety of reasons. So I just wanted to underscore that as part of our plans.
Yeah. So certainly it's as has been mentioned and Commissioner McLean-Hill reiterated, everything is tied to everything else. There's no ability to isolate one piece and say this is not as important as another piece, because there's a certain interreliance, both in terms of technology and managing the different business aspects of the department, as well as there's a definite tie between water has its own money, power has its own money, and everybody in the middle has both their money. And so there's a absolute tie in terms of our budget of where those dollars get allocated and how we can make all the necessary things move forward together. Dr. Pickle, you had some pretty firm thoughts about some of this. Can I call on you to offer your reflections?
Absolutely. I think this is a very tough balancing act, and I think the three major areas that illustrate what a difficult balancing act it is one, we don't know how our sales are going. The world is a different place if the Washington Post publishes an article on month-to-month power usage in their Sunday edition. The numbers Marty said are similar to the California numbers overall, that electricity usage overall has dropped about 10%. But if you look around the country, it's changing all the time, and the numbers range from 5% to 20%, depending on the region, depending on how far into the process various areas are. So that's the big question on power. AWWA published a study on the costs of reduced sales, and they included not just the lost revenue, but also the costs on collections and other parts of the business operation. So there are other aspects of this lost sales. The second major area is we're really in a key transition period for the industry, and for DWP in particular. We have renewables, we have things to integrate the renewables like the energy imbalance market and the smart grid at varying levels, and we have all the IT projects that both relate to the renewables and the smart grid, but also relate to billing systems and enterprise management systems. So we want to keep doing all those investments. And the third side is if you're spending more and having fewer sales, your rates are going to go up. And how fast it will appear in bills is really the additional challenge. And, I am the ratepayer advocate. I am supposed to be the watchdog, so I'm concerned about that. Our short-term answer is fundamentally related to what Marty's been saying, and we discovered that as we brought our report to Marty and Ann said, gee, we're talking about keeping the budget the same, and we said, well, we're saying the same thing, keep the budget the same. We have an additional twist. There's a huge amount of operational, financial, and economic uncertainty given the pandemic. And we're suggesting that the Commission do a provisional budget, or maybe call it a final budget, but with the understanding it'll be revisited after we do the adjustments in September for reduced sales in water and power. We'll know more what those are going to be by then. And also just have a better view of when we might be able to come out of this pandemic-related environment, and revisit the budget issues at that time at a transparent and board-level review. So our two recommendations: one, at a basic level, do a provisional budget with a specific review after the decoupling adjustments have been calculated and adopted, and two, freeze the budget as last year's budget. There are lots of tweaks that need to be made. We discussed some of those, but we couldn't cover all of those in our comments in the memo before you. Just as a side note on two items, on the EIM, it isn't just about cost savings. It's the additional operational flexibility you get where you're tapping a market that's throughout the West rather than one-on-one bilateral transactions. It operates much more quickly. And two, being in a very short-term market like this, your people working in that market get a sense of how things are changing, what problems might be occurring. So it's a useful forum for gathering intelligence on what's developing. So it helps you in ways that are more valuable than just the pure direct cost savings. The other area is we wanted to congratulate the IT budget in calling out who is responsible, or the various areas on IT projects in the short term and within the single year. I think that slide would be better if we knew in writing who was responsible for each area. That was recited last time, but it'd be better if it was in print. Those are my comments.
Commissioners, just from a procedural standpoint, I would note that, Dr. Pickle mentioned doing a provisional budget. The charter requires you to adopt a budget by a time certain, so it's not a provisional budget that you would be adopting. It is a budget, but technically all your budgets are provisional because you can go back and change them at a later point as the need dictates. So as we get down the line, I would not call it a provisional budget. I would call it our budget, but like all our budgets, they are subject to change as circumstance dictate.
So they could be revisited.
Well, we could have some stronger language as to its essential provisionality.
Certainly.
To make sure that people understand that.
Well, and I would think that along those lines, probably at least quarterly reporting on where we are with how we're spending and what we're getting for our money. Projects, not every project starts on day one of the budget. And so if we look like we're doing better or worse than projected, we could either hold off on a project or potentially move some up in the schedule if the budget allows. So that's something we could do. Ann, I think you had some thoughts about the budget and some of Dr. Pickle's ideas. Did you have anything you want to offer the board?
No, I think it was pleasant to hear that we were both on the same track at looking at the approved budget for 1920, and then once we have more direction, then coming back with that rate adjustment. So if we do go with the 1920 budget and we finalize our sales forecast, what is that cents per kilowatt hour change and the dollars per HCF change for fiscal year 2021?
So in response to Commissioner McLean-Hill's her comments, I realize that putting words on programs that don't do a lot in terms of really putting a picture. So as we're going through what we think the right mix is, I'm going to try to present that graphically and also not wait till the next board meeting to do that, so you can start seeing the thinking and what we think will most be the proper mix to move things ahead. Certainly IT support of certain things the system needs, whether it's things that Sharon needs in the call center, or whether it's things that Rich or Andy need in the field. That there's a lot of things that are smaller IT projects that are also critical to support because they have a big impact on staffing and efficiency and that sort of thing. So we're not going to lose sight. We don't want to lose sight of those things. And Lewis had grand plans to accomplish a lot of that. And to have people dedicated to some of those issues, that it wasn't where everyone's all working only CCB or only working on ERP, and a lot of the other needs are not getting addressed. So a lot of it depends on how much staff we have to put toward ERP and how much we have to bite off. We're going to have a discussion with another group outside about seeing if there's what are smaller bites that we can bite off and still accomplish some of the things that are needed. We know our human resources management system, HRMS, is limping along on a daily basis. Shannon has to struggle with what he can do in his shop because of the deficiencies in that system. Ann's got issues with payroll system that, of course, is the last thing you want to see go down, because that's what's hopefully keeping people incentivized to remember to come to work every day. And so, there's critical things like that we know we need. So we're reassessing to see if there's a plan of attack that we can execute that doesn't involve, trying to eat the whole elephant at one time. So, and that, of course, makes a big difference in how many people are then available to do, support the other areas that other measures that become, help us with efficiencies. One of the biggest things that I need to just kind of get the board's temperature on is that if we stick with the 1920 approved budget, we can function, we have room to grow in certain areas, we can continue to accelerate because we have the areas that we're underspent in, it's somewhat a split between our actual expenditures and where we were hoping to go in the budget that we presented at the last board meeting. But again, in, I guess it's December, Ann, we'll be faced with reconciling the rates, the pass-through based on the system that's already in place.
October is
October.
usually when we have the actuals for the fiscal year, and then we can compare the base rate revenue that's in the ordinance with the base rate revenue that's billed, and that differential is what's billed over the next calendar year.
Right, so that bill would just take effect January?
January 1st.
Right, so it is not something that affects anybody right now. It wouldn't affect anyone for the next, 7 or 8 months. There's a water rate adjustment already approved and built in, affecting, and that's based on mostly purchased water charges, and anything happens in July. Power just went down a little bit, right?
Power went down a little bit based on some legal settlements.
Yeah, so if the board is generally comfortable with sticking with the current approved budget, I think that we can present a final budget to you that shows what exactly the work would be. But recognize that somewhere around January, we would see a increase in the rate based on what's actually built in, and then the impact that is really subject to the amount of water and power we actually sell, in terms of making the total revenue dollars come in. So it's really, the revenue is somewhat neutral. It's the rate that it takes to get there based on sales. So the question is whether that seems to be an acceptable approach or whether you have reservations about the optics of that.
Are you looking for a vote of some kind, Marty?
I'm looking for any kind of guidance you're willing to offer, or we'll just proceed along that path. I will say just briefly, if I could, sorry, that I've not had any direct feedback from the mayor's office. I do know that some of the staff that we work with regularly over there, they understand that things are tight and things are different all the way around. At the same time, we're not looking to go backwards in our commitments. We're on a good path for our renewable goals and both for power supply as well as local water supply. I think that we can stay within the budget and continue those programs moving forward. I think there's sensitivity that we don't want to see a complete reversion to the past, and hopefully we can avoid having to take a giant step backwards in making progress. So.
Well, speaking for myself, I think in light of the fact that staff and ratepayer advocate came out independently, essentially in the same general place with a few tweaks, I'm very comfortable with that approach. Perhaps other people would like to share their view.
I concur.
I'm supportive as well.
Same here. I just want to emphasize that the new normal is really going to be different, in that we just have to have that agility to adjust what our operations and what our services would look like. And sometimes those are hard decisions to make, but we have to be truthful and transparent to our ratepayers.
If I could add, Commissioner, along those lines, it's interesting because we know that we'll have folks that'll have to have extended payment plans, and we actually have already done some of that, extended some of the payment plan provisions. We're assuming that our write-offs are not bad right now. We're assuming that those will grow some amount because some people may move out before they finish their payment plans and that sort of thing. So yeah, we are very sensitive to that issue. But I think with all that taken into account, we would be okay with what you said, we're very, very mindful of. So. Commissioner Neiman Brady, were you saying something? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
It wasn't me.
Oh, sorry.
Further comment on this one?
I couldn't tell if Commissioner Barad she's on mute. I didn't know if she was going to make a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can, yes.
Marty, can you hear me? This is Jill.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the mayor's budget was really very dire as to different infrastructure that he said is going to have to be cut. And one of the things that he mentioned was tree trimming. And I wonder how that affects us, with, and when Andy made his report about, trees that are going to need to be trimmed, because of the wind. And are there any other things other than tree trimming that you see are going to be a problem with the new budget? And that we should look at in looking at our budget?
Well, that's a good point. The tree trimming is typically different than our tree trimming. Andy, do you want to comment on you think potential impact there or not?
Yeah, for the tree trimming, I mean, really what will be impacted is street trees. We will still do we do our own trimming near power lines and anything that's required for clearance. So that won't be impacted by this. We will still be doing the same amount of tree trimming. And I think, in some cases, we'll have the ability to assist the city with our tree crews where necessary. If there's a risk to the public, I think we'll be able to help with that. But it won't impact our trimming or our requirements for trimming near power lines. It'll just impact the city's ability to trim street trees.
Right. So you could have some large street trees that sometimes they fall across the street and take out a power line, but that's something that we wouldn't normally trim. So that does happen, and hopefully we won't see that if there's gusts of wind this week. But that's the one place I can see potentially an impact. But you brought up a very good point. So other city services, we rely on city permits. We rely on Con Ed doing certain public works inspections and other things. So we are actually putting together a plan to how we can engage with the city and make sure that they're supporting what we need. And typically we pay for those services anyway. And there may be some other services the city could offer that we might be able to use them somewhat as the contractor in certain places that we would otherwise be contracting out work anyway. So I'm developing some plans like that. I don't want to say too much publicly because they're pretty in their infancy, but there's some ideas in places that we can help support the city and help them support us getting our own work done. But you also brought to mind the point about construction. Construction is one of the things that's actually going on right now in terms of the economy. I was on a call with LA County Public Works and about 120 different cities and agencies, and one of the construction labor chiefs was talking about the fact that construction is moving, they're doing it safely, and it needs to keep moving because otherwise we have another 110,000 people in LA County that would be looking for unemployment. And so I realize that as the city moves forward, our ability to move on our projects will be a critical piece of the economy. And us moving not only our projects, the materials we buy, the contracts we let, will all be an important piece of this. And just as Rich mentioned about the new services have not gone down, we know that we need to continue to support new service requests on the power side. That typically involves extensive reconductoring because the power demands are going up so much, especially with electrification and electric vehicle plug-in requirements, the AC requirements and things like that. So there's a lot of work that's going to be customer driven that we have to continue to support. So that's another area that we were hoping to grow staff in. Again, it's going to be kind of a balancing act between that, and which is kind of bread and butter routine municipal work, versus all the other key things, both in water and power, in terms of, you know, getting toward a greener future. But construction will be one of the things that really gets the city moving, and something that we're going to have to play a large role in.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Marty, I think
go ahead.
you've gotten some generalized support.
Okay, well that's the guidance I was looking for. Then we will complete the next draft budget. I think what we'll do is try to get it out with some good charts and graphs about what is and isn't being accomplished, about you know, what work will move forward, particularly how we'll dispatch our IT resources, and try to get that early on so everyone can digest it. Certainly, we're available to answer questions, you know, in the meantime for clarity within what Joe allows me. But I think we're able to answer questions, you know, to clarify what we're sending you. I suspect that we'd want to have another review before you adopt the budget, unless what we send you is so brilliantly put together that you're perfectly satisfied with it. But we have till the end of May to take a final budget vote. So I guess we'll see what the board thinks it needs to see on that, and then you know, plan meetings accordingly. But at least we could always, at the worst case, get together a meeting to adopt the budget without a whole lot of other you know, things, and everybody can do it from the comfort of their home at least. So
sounds good.
Yeah, I would just say, yes, that's great. And, you know, Susanna has already made the pitch for transparency. And, you know, from my perspective, the more information and the sooner the better. It's difficult to, you know, to exercise independent judgment when information is not fulsome and is not provided with time to reflect and ask questions outside of the context of the meeting.
Right, I certainly understand that, and it's been a scrambling session here trying to get this thought through, along with everybody being out of the workplace for the most part and everything else going on. But I think we have everybody focused on it and working on trying to get some detailed plans, and even if we don't have everything at the same time, we'll begin to roll out information as it becomes available, so you can see it early on. So,
thank you. I really appreciate it, Marty.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Marty.
Okay. Well, thank you, and that concludes.
Yeah. Any objection to moving to filed items? Hearing none. Financial Services, January.
The January report is in your package, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none. Power Systems, as well as RPS, Energy Storage, and EV, February.
The Power System and RPS reports are in your file. Would be happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Hearing none. We move to item 10, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of March 31st?
So moved. This is Jill.
Mel seconds. Susie, please call the roll.
Susanna Reyes.
Aye.
Neiman Brady.
Yes.
Mel Levine.
Aye.
McLean Hill.
Aye.
Jill Berard.
Aye.
Approved.
Sounds like 5-0 approval. We move to item 11 that was pulled by Commissioner Barad. Jill, do you have specific questions, or do you want to
Yes,
hear?
I have a couple of questions. I'm reading this. I understand that this is really, we're talking about a company that we've worked with before, and it says that we've had satisfactory relationship with. My question is how does this annual audit relate to Galprin's audit. Does this impact at all what he looks at, or is this a separate thing? How do they kind of relate to one another?
So the city controller requests all of the proprietary departments to have their own separate audits. So the department has an audit done, and then we present that to the controller's office for the inclusion in the consolidated annual financial report that Controller Galprin issues. So he puts the DWP information into his audit, and his audit team relies on our auditors to do their work for the consolidated annual report.
All right, so does that mean that his office contacts the company that we've hired and that they somehow work together, or he asks questions? How does that relationship work?
So the department does the initial audit, and we submit that usually in November to the controller's office, a soft copy of the document so that they can incorporate it into the annual CAFR report. And then when the CAFR is getting close to being issued, the city will actually reach out to our auditors to get an updated on any changes that have occurred since their opinion date, so they can include that in their CAFR.
So we're the building block for the city.
Yes, and then airports and harbor, DWP pensions and lacers also do the same thing.
Okay. All right.
Jill, does that answer your questions? Are you prepared to vote?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve item number 11.
Is there a second?
Cynthia, I second.
Second.
Okay, Susie, please call the roll.
Levine,
Aye.
McLean Hill,
Aye.
Jill Berard,
Hello?
Reyes,
Aye.
Neiman Brady,
Who's calling?
Neiman Brady, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said approved. Someone else talked, so.
Thank you. Berard,
Yes.
5-0.
Yes, aye.
Thank you. Approved.
That is approved 5-0. We move to item 13. Nicole, do you want a presentation or do you have specific questions?
I just have a general specific question, and I thought this was important to bring up to the broader group rather than address it separately. So this is additional debt, and then items, sorry, I'm looking through my notes here. Items 19 through 22 are also increased leverage, and particularly on the water side. And in light of what recently transpired with Fitch and S&P, this is a lot of new debt. And I'm wondering basically what the impacts on our ratios are. Is there a reconsideration of how much leverage we should have, and how the credit agencies are viewing our water side, given what they just did on the power side?
Well, I think the debt that we're asking for the water system to authorize, the ones that have already been approved, those are the state revolving loan debt. And that debt is very cost effective for the department. Until the program is officially fully funded, we only pay interest on that. So there's no principal payments on it. And the new money debt that we're asking for approval today, this is what has already been authorized by the City Council, this $80 million. And this will fund all the other programs that aren't specific to the state revolving loan. So I believe that we can never predict how the rating agencies look at us. We think that our financial metrics are strong. We have a 65% maximum debt to equity ratio for the water system, and we believe that supports a AA bond rating.
And what percent are we at now?
We
and
are,
just to clarify,
we are right below the 65%. Originally, and one of the things that we're still pursuing is rate reduction bonds. We do have to make some modification to our billing system, but a lot of the debt that the water system issues is to do state or federally mandated projects covering our reservoirs, water quality initiatives. And so these types of programs are legally required, and once the department is ready to do rate reduction bonds, we can implement that, and that will bring down our leverage and also bring down our costs per HCF billing unit to our customers.
Okay, so to be clear, of there's roughly 880 million in here. Only 80 million of that is not currently in the existing plan.
The 80 million is new money compared to the item 13 is 240 million, 160 million of it is refunding bonds. And so we think we can reduce the interest on those, and then the other ones are the state revolving fund.
Okay. All right. And then what kind of communications are you having with Fitch and others at this time?
We met with Fitch twice this month on the power side, and we met with Moody's earlier this month more on the power side. So once these are approved, we're looking to go out for bonds next month. We will ask the rating agencies for ratings, and then we'll work with them on any presentations they'd like to hear or questions they have with us. So those, the water side ones will be coming likely next month.
Yep. And recall that water and power each have separate credit ratings, and really the concern on the power credit ratings have really been related to wildfire liability issues. I mean, that's been the focus actually throughout all of California. That's been affecting most power agencies is wildfire risks. So that's been the driving factor for concerns as far as credit rating go. Anything you want to add on that? That's
for the power side, yeah, the power side, they the rating agencies have collected a lot of data on how the department and other agencies are dealing with wildfire risk and how we're managing that.
But it's basically it's all the people are being affected by the same situation. It's all a fallout of that.
When you have discussions with them, do they parse out how they weight certain factors? Because I know they also mentioned O&M and the leverage.
They usually have 3 to 4 different metrics they'll look at financially to see if it's they have criteria. Is it AA, single A, and then they'll weight that. They don't share exactly what it is with us because they have their own feeling as to how we're managing our risk, how we're financially, but the department does monitor it and strongly likes to keep our AA bond rating because that keeps our interest costs down because we only have 2 sources of money. It's either bonds or rates from customers. And so if we can keep the bond costs down, that helps keep our rates low.
And I have to applaud you on the very favorable rates that are being received by the water system area through the state funds. So that's really fantastic. That's saving customers a ton of money.
Yeah, they've been very helpful for us.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve this item?
Reyes moves the item.
Mel seconds. Susie, please call the roll.
Mel Levine.
Aye.
McLean Hill.
Aye.
Barad.
Aye.
Reyes.
Aye.
Neiman Brady.
Aye.
5 ayes.
5 ayes on matter 13. It's approved. And we now move to item 15. Again, Nicole, do you have specific questions or do you want a presentation?
There is a presentation on, and I would appreciate it. In specific, I've used AWS in the past. These types of services when this area was underneath me at Edison, and we never paid quite this much. So I'm curious what a breakdown in the services and associated costs is kind of what I'm interested in.
Rick, are you? Here. Oh my gosh.
So
We have a real person here.
coming in.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have to apologize. I did not hear the question as we were walking in, so Commissioner Brady.
Go ahead and ask it again.
So the question was to go through the presentation, but in specific, I'm interested in understanding exactly just what the services that are being provided, because the pricing seems high relative to what I'm used to.
Yeah. We'll go through the presentation.
Yeah, you'll do the presentation. Okay.
So, good afternoon. Thank you again for allowing us to bring this to the commissioners. Again, this is the software purchase for the engineering imbalance market. I'm not going to go through what EIM is. I think Reiko already did a great job. I would just focus on saying that CAISO is looking at more of a efficient use of renewables across the western United States with a focus on economics and reliability. So, and I think for the LA ratepayer, a great benefit because of the number of generation facilities we have and the reach of our transmission. So,
Sorry.
Okay.
Do you mind just introducing yourself? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he did. I'm Paul Schultz. I'm the Director of External Energy Resources. Sorry about that. So in March of 2017, the board approved us, LA, entering the energy imbalance market. Since then, we've kind of had this race to accomplish that schedule, training, business process, IT systems, and software procurement. We are going live April 2021, and I will tell you later this week, we actually are starting testing with CAISO on our systems 5 months ahead of schedule. And when we look at software procurement, this is actually the last and fourth package to the board for approval. Starting in September of last year, you approved the settlements software, 2 other packages in the November timeframe, and the request today for the variable energy resource. So the variable energy resource forecasting software is a requirement for EIM for us to provide for our generation facilities, specifically the solar and wind, the weather forecast, and megawatts on a 5-minute and hourly basis. The total cost of that, the contract is $628,000 for a 3-year term. In reality, the software is actually about $320,000 license for 3 years. There's a $50,000 implementation costs for services, and then $170,000 for third-party costs. And what that is for the cost if we have to use the software for the other 2 entities in our balancing authority in the next 3 years. If they come into the EIM market, that would allow us to provide forecasting information for them. And then an additional 15% contingency. I'm sorry.
Who are those other parties? Who are you talking about?
They're both the 2 other entities in our balancing authority are Burbank and Glendale. They will not be joining when we enter the market in 2021.
So, are they reimbursing us for those?
We would have to come up with a way to reimburse, but we will be, as the balancing authority, responsible for providing that forecast information.
Okay, and then given the delay in implementation, are you, when does when do payments start?
The payment would start immediately just because, like I did say, we will be starting testing with CAISO later this week, and this is the last software package that needs to be configured. Payment is once a year of $110,000 for licensing plus the $50,000 in the first year for implementation costs.
clarifying question.
Yes.
So a difference between the Edison bids and this bid might be generation is not covered in an Edison bid, but we have to, since we still hold a number of generation facilities, we have to provide the generation forecast information. And this is really a question for Commissioner Neiman Brady as well as for you.
Correct. We have 70 plus generation facilities that we will be providing generation information, of which 50 of them require solar or wind information from this forecasting software.
You know, Fred, I don't know how you make that distinction, because Edison had both utility-owned and which was much lower than what LADWP does, but it had so many PPAs. When I was there, solar, the renewable ones were about 300 that we had to do forecasting services for.
My apologies, I forgot about the PPAs.
Commissioner, one of the other items, we recognize this cost is a little higher than the existing forecasting software we're using. It's about 50% higher. I will tell you, though, that the vendor that we have our existing forecasting software did not bid on this and did not meet, because they could not meet some of the requirements in the EIM market.
Because why?
I don't specifically have that information. I can ask staff for that.
I just didn't hear what you said. They said that they didn't bid because
they didn't meet the requirements that we had for forecasting in the EIM market.
I see. Okay, I just didn't hear that.
Okay.
And that's IBM?
It's Metalogica.
And I assume that even though this says a term not to, the summary page says a term not to exceed, but the page on the screen says 3-year term 4. So is it not to exceed 628, or is it actually 628?
Not to exceed 628.
So where would you think we would be coming out if it's a not to exceed?
So the expectations will be a little under $400,000 if we implement EIM and the other two entities in our balancing authority do not. And then you could probably add another $200,000 if they, depending on when they come into the market, if they come into EIM within the next 3 years.
Nicole, how does that number compare to what you're used to?
The number that
it still seems high, but you know, it seems like we got limited submissions despite the numerous downloads. I wonder about the need to execute this a year in advance of joining the target of April 2021. It just seems like a really long amount of time to be paying them for essentially not testing a testing period.
I think you're going to come up here.
Yes. Stay apart.
Hello?
Good.
Yes, hello?
Is it on?
Yeah. Regis? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this is Jaime Pinedo, EIM Project Manager. Thank you for the question. We do need, the reason we're asking to bring on this system now is because we are, as Paul Schultz mentioned, our director, we've moved our connectivity testing 5 months up earlier with the ISO. And even if we were to stay on their normal schedule, which is pushing it back to September, we would need to have all of the requirements done by this new vendor to bring them up to speed to get ready for connectivity testing. So as we do speak, We are bringing all of our vendors up to date. We're testing with KISO right now, and we can't really afford to have all of our vendors come on at the end because we wouldn't have the resources to handle all the different systems being prepared simultaneously.
Does that kind of answer your question, or do you want more follow-up on that?
No, I think these are adequate answers. I mean, it's I'm not close to it, and there's got to be shades of gray here, so I'm willing to go forward with a vote.
Is there other discussion on this matter, or is everybody ready to vote? Is there a motion to approve? I'll move approval. Is there a second?
Ray, a second.
Susie, please call the roll.
Malavine,
Aye.
McLean Hill,
Aye.
Barad,
Aye.
Reyes,
Aye.
Neiman Brady,
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, it passes 5-0. We move to our final open agenda item, number 16. Nicole, once again, specific questions or a presentation?
Just a specific question in light of, well, actually, when I first read this, oil prices had only plummeted 25%, but now we're in a new territory.
Now they'll pay us.
Yeah, right, exactly. And while I understand this is a kind of cost-plus arrangement, I'm just curious how that takes into consideration the current dynamics of oil fuel pricing.
Tom, you want to do this?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioner. This is Tom Patzloff, Director of Fleet and Aviation Services. And just to kind of answer your question, this contract was based on an index. It's the Oil Price Information Service. So it's fuel is kind of a commodity similar to other types of things in commodity markets. So this OPIS index is put out daily. And the vendors, what they do is they bid on either a cost plus or a cost minus. So when prices are down like this, we're going to be getting fuel at a great price. I think it's somewhere around 94 cents a gallon right now. And when this bidding opened back in November, it was around $2.40 a gallon.
And what did you say it was roughly now?
As of yesterday, 417, 93.933, so 93 cents a gallon for unleaded.
Incredible. Thank you.
Further discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Cynthia, I second.
Susie, please call the roll.
Levine,
Aye.
McLean Hill,
Aye.
Jill Barad, Susanna Reyes,
Aye.
Neiman Brady,
Aye.
Commissioner Berard has stepped away.
Okay, we'll call this approved and we'll take her vote. Although I guess we're at the end of our open session agenda.
Taz, one item to add under his general manager report. Is that correct?
I was just going to, before we make final comments, was ask about upcoming board meeting. We're off we're off by a week on our normal rotation. Normally next week would be thank you, Tom. Normally next week would be our next board meeting. I don't believe we have anything that is critical. We need to meet on that soon. We will need to get together on budget. I don't know if we need to have if we get back on our regular schedule, we would have a meeting in 3 weeks and then one in the end of May. Is that correct? So I don't know what your preference is as a board in terms of if you'd like to see how this develops and wait to schedule the next meeting, or just plan to go back to our normal schedule and see if we can make that work. And we can always make an exception. I don't know what you'd like to do on that.
Unless there's a need to meet on May 5th, I would recommend that we go back to our regular schedule and play it by ear from there.
Okay, well, that would give us another round of being able to hear the budget presentation before the final vote. So that would,
Right.
unless something else comes up, I think that would work, if that works for you.
Any objection to that? Marty, seems like there's no objection to that.
Okay, we will plan to work along those lines then. That's great.
Joe, are we going to go into closed session?
We are going to have a brief closed session. You should have a separate invitation to that closed session with access numbers. So at this point, we will recess in a closed session.
Well, just wait 1 second. Is Jill back or not?
Jill?
Okay, so
No, she's not.
No, she's
okay,
not.
Item 16 will pass by a 4-0 vote.
For ice.
And then,
Thank you.
so Joe, go ahead.
At this point, we will recess in a closed session, and in accordance with Government Code Section 54957.1, we'll report any final actions taken therein. We are in recess. Thank you.
And just to clarify, it would have been an email from Arlene Rodriguez, my secretary. She would have sent a separate email. It should have a green WebEx link to click on, and that'll put us on our own separate meeting, and I'll go to my office to take that. So it's live as of a minute from now, but my recommendation was maybe we can reconvene in about 10 minutes. Does that work for everyone, to give everyone a chance to stretch your legs for a second?
Yeah, we'll reconvene at 12:40.
In closed session.
Yeah, in closed session on that new link from Arlene Rodriguez. Okay, great.
Hey, okay.
Thank you all very much. If you have a problem, email me or text me, and I'll make sure you get hooked up with it. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Are we done?
We're done.
Okay.
We're done.
Marty, can I get a picture?
What?
That concludes the session.
Oh, the mic? Here, I'll get it.
Let's make sure we're dead on everything, please.